My belief is that crime, there's always things behind why. Even the worst of crimes, and there's a reason why behind it. And I think it's always very hard as a victim to understand why somebody could do what they've done. But I hope that through me sharing my stories both with the inmates and with others, that they'll see that there's a human behind what's going on here, and that the person who's committed the crime was quite often a victim before they became an offender.
Throughout the world, New Zealand is regarded as a safe place to live, much admired for its scenic beauty and affluent lifestyle. Aotearoa has a small population, yet year on year our prison population is growing, and our prisons are overflowing.
New Zealand has a huge volunteer population that goes into the prisons. I mean, we've got around about 7,500 people in prison with around about 3,000 volunteers, and that's the highest ratio in the entire world.
New Zealand Prison Fellowship is a dedicated organisation working in all of these prisons across New Zealand, bringing hope and faith to prisoners and their families.
In the Auckland area, there's around about 700 volunteers. It's a huge positive for New Zealand to have that kind of number of volunteers going in, because it's a connection with the community and they can see these role models.
As Auckland Regional Coordinator for the Prison Fellowship, Lance Thompson has a vast understanding of both the success and failures of the New Zealand prison system.
I will forever, for the rest of my life, I'll be prison number 60427310. I've been out over 2 years now, and I can't see myself at this point not having nightmares. A day came where the police knocked on my door one morning, six, seven police cars, flashing lights, the whole thing. My wife was getting ready to go to work. I answered the door. Essentially, I had to walk down the hallway and tell her what I'd been doing for 3 years. That was pretty traumatic, and she called her father, and he came over, and I had to tell him. Committed a fraud against the government department. I ran a number of pretty successful companies, and I got greedy. Really, I guess at the end of the day, I got greedy, and when some problems came into my life, I thought I could fix them with money, and I ended up breaking the law. And over an extended period of time, around about 3 years of criminal activity. Eventually, as always happens, it catches up with you. Around about a year later, I got sentenced to prison. And so I got sentenced to just over 3 years in prison. And so I went from, I guess, a white collar, middle class kind of lifestyle, and getting dropped into the middle of Mount Eden prison. It was just such a culture shock. Mount Eden prison was built in like the 1850s, Victorian style prison, as we'd imagine a dungeon type thing to be. 2 men to a cell, no hot water, your air conditioning is a little hole the guards use to peek through and just check that you're there. We have this idea that prison is supposed to change people and turn them good, when really prison does change people and generally turns them worse, makes them worse.
To help break the cycle of prisoner reoffending, the Prison Fellowship promotes church-based ministries into prisons, introducing policies and programs into the criminal justice system, the most significant being the Sycamore program, designed to introduce the concept of restorative justice.
I think the biggest thing that Sycamore Tree helps offenders with is what I call victim empathy, and it means that you can feel or understand a little bit about the pain that you'll cause somebody if you go down the path of committing a crime. This is something that the huge majority of offenders never think about. It just doesn't even enter their head.
One of my reasons for doing the Sycamore was I was raped a long time ago, and that's always something that's left quite a big scar in me. So I wanted to see how I'd feel. Yeah. And I'm nosy. I wanted to see what a prison was like. Yeah.
At our church they were advertising they wanted volunteers to take part in the Sycamore Tree program, and I felt it was something that I could do, that I could go along and be supportive to the women in a caring way and show friendship to them.
Driving through the gates, I was kind of excited, and then when I met the guys, and I even said this to them, I was kind of like, oh, they were just normal, everyday people.
As the program went on, we were encouraged to talk about our own journey and what had brought us as volunteers. Also, the prisoners were encouraged to tell us what had led them to become incarcerated.
Over the 8-week period, you connect with these people in a really intimate, trusting way.
It also gives them the opportunity to meet with the person that they've offended. I think it's good that the people are able to address that and make some acknowledgement through somebody that they are truly sorry for what they've done and would like to meet the person. I understand not all the victims wanted to meet. That was something that the girls had to work through. They thought it was a bit disappointing, but they understood.
I was able to express anger, and I think for some of the guys, hearing how a woman felt when she got raped, hearing what it felt like when a hand was put over my mouth, I think it was pretty hard-hitting for them.
Having the freedom to walk on the beach is something that Anita doesn't take for granted. Anita is an ex-member of the Sycamore Tree program and an ex-convict.
I trained to become a radiation therapist treating cancer patients, and I did that for a number of years. Decided I wanted to change, and so I got into web design with a company, and then unfortunately I got into drugs. It was when P sort of started hitting the streets in Auckland, and this group of us decided we wanted to try it. All of a sudden we started creating parties so that we could get the P, it turned it around, and we started using P more and more and more, and it finally got hold of me and I became dependent on it. With regard to my family, at first I would take P secretly, and I think that they wouldn't know, and it got more difficult and more difficult to hide the fact that I was a secret drug user. I learned how to make it because I couldn't afford to buy it. That got me into a whole lot of strife because the people I had to deal with were very unsavoury people and ripped me off, beat me up, all sorts of things. And once those sort of people find out you're a cook, they can come and kidnap you, put you in the boot, take you away and force you to do cooks for them. It doesn't affect you physically like heroin, it affects you psychologically. So you actually don't realise how bad you're getting. I was doing a cook and one of the cops came round to see me about something, and I had iodine all over my hands, and he recognised what it was and wanted to come in and caught me red-handed. I went to jail, got a 3.5-year sentence, and I did 2. Being in jail was the best thing I could have ever done. I'm really grateful to the arresting detective who arrested me that day. I actually wrote him a letter and thanked him for saving my life.
I did just over 3 months in Mount Eden. It's really, I guess, how people imagine jails to be. I just found so many men there that had lost all hope in their lives. And it broke my heart, and I was like, surely there's a way, surely there's something different to what I'm seeing around me. I kept getting turned down for parole. The main reason was that I hadn't done any rehabilitation programs while I was in prison. So I was too high risk to be in society, but too low risk to actually be helped. So it was said to me, well, just sit back, do however long you have to do, and eventually you'll get out. I got told that I was going to get sent to Remataka prison in Upper Hutt in Wellington. If you've lived in prison for any period of time, you'll realise that prison is a world of violence and dysfunction anyway, and they're just so anti how the community should be. So just walking out a door and getting $350 from work and income, why would magic suddenly happen at that moment that suddenly turns these guys who've lived like that for years into these good, contributing members of society?
Kim Wyatt joined the Sycamore Tree program to help deal with her own family's tragedy.
It's only in the last year that I started to share a lot more openly that yes, my brother is in prison, that he committed murder. He murdered a man he did not know. He broke into his home early hours of the morning and stabbed this man to death. I cannot speak on behalf of the victims of this crime, and I really need to make that clear from the outset, that this is my story, this is our side of things. If we cannot comment at all about how that feels for the victim of David's crime. I heard Sandy Haunt speak about the Sycamore Tree program, and I shared with her the story of what had happened with my brother and the crime that he had committed, and the aftermath. And at that point she said to me, Kim, I think that this is really important that you do the Sycamore Tree program. And I said, oh, all right, but I'm not a victim. And she said, but you are. And it was the first time that I had recognised that I was a victim